This Protoman review is brought to you by Big Bad Toy Store. Big Bad Toy Store, the ultimate in toys. Protoretro.
So I come back home and I find in the mail a Fortress Maximus sized box from Amazon. And I was like, what did I order that was that big? But apparently the Covenant of Primus is some serious stuff, even with Amazon. And I don't even think when it gets normal retail it's going to be packaged like this. It comes in a humongous box. And then within that box, another box that says Covenant of Primus on it. Now, within that box, again, kind of like packaged like the Ark of the Covenant. Put a little piece of paper, which I'll get to in a second. Another box. And this box, of course, a lot nicer, and it says, you know, transport the Covenant of Primus. And on the back it talks about how this book was written by Alpha Trion for us humans. And it comes in an Autobot packaging. And it's wall mounted and blah blah blah. Also comes in a little instruction paper about how you can wall mount this Autobot logo and the batteries and all that stuff. And how to open it properly. Now with this packaging, it's a slider, like so. So a very tight one too. So excuse me for a second. There we go. So this one comes off. There's another packaging here. Again, the Covenant of Primus, stars on the back. And you open this one. A lot of protection for this. And then inside is the Autobot shield there. But it even still has protection on it, so after you struggle to pull it out here, put it in this tight plastic. Still has a cardboard backing. Now you pull the plastic tab out, which gives you the sounds right away, which is good because it comes with batteries. You don't have to buy batteries. And it comes in 3 settings. It has high for the sound, low, and off in case you don't want to wake up your loved ones every time you open this thing. But, so, like so. Then you pull that from this one. And then you pull this side. It makes the sound. Now, in the advertising, they made it seem like it was automatic the way it opens, but it's all manual. You pull off this cardboard, which again is the final piece of packaging, and there's the Covenant of Primus. With Optimus Prime's face on the front and a Golden Age Cybertron on the back. And like that. The low setting is just, it's more quieter. Very not noticeable. And then there's an off setting. It's really nice. Again, it's wall mounted. You can hang it on the wall if you want. You know, it's now your religious Bible for us Transformer Cybertronian fanatics that want the will of Primus. But this is our Bible, more or less. Now, I'm going to go into a bit of the story. It's a bit of a spoiler here, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible without spoiling too much. And if you really, really want to read this without being spoiled at all, I heavily suggest you stop the video right now. But this book is broken down essentially into 4 parts. The Origins, which talks about the original 13 and goes into great detail about them. We actually get images of the original 13 that some of us only saw at BotCon 2010 it was, when we went to the Hasbro fiction panel, like of Solus and, you know, Nexus and Onyx, stuff that we only saw at that panel. And if you went to my TFCon History of Cybertron panel. And it also shows some images that we haven't seen before, like the 13th Prime, or the 13th as we know him, who his identity is. But the thing that's weird is there actually is images that are lacking in this book. That would have been very appropriate. We were shown in the Hasbro panel at BotCon, we were shown the Fallen, like, after his Megatronus form. And that was not in this book, which was kind of sad because that's something that hasn't been a publicly released image. We also are lacking stuff that, while we have those images, they would have been very appropriate to put into the book. In one of the origin stories, they talk about getting ready to fight Unicron. And they use appropriately an image that was used from Transformers Prime of the original 13 where they're about to... And again, they now put context to these images because they explain that this was the first time they were going through the rift to fight Unicron. There was another scene in Transformers Prime where you see the original 13 minus 2 members around the well of the Allspark. This isn't in the book at all, but yet the scene is talked about quite vividly in the book. So it would have been kind of nice if that was put in there to, again, give some kind of a visual and explain why that image in the cartoon didn't have those other 2 original 13 members, which were the absence of Megatronus and Solus. And their absence for that is a bit of a spoiler in the book. So again, I'm going to try to avoid talking about that. So that's the first part, essentially the original 13, how they casted out Unicron, what happened to Megatronus, and leading up to the 13 creating civilization. Which leads to part 2. Part 2, which I like to kind of call the rise of the beasts, more or less. There is no, like, I believe they call it the evolution of Cybertron, but essentially that chapter is like the rise of the beasts, which covers civilization showing up, it's slowly evolving, how it is essentially the way it is, and the rise of the beasts, more or less, which is the showing up of the Predacons, and then later on with Shockwave and the Dinobots, which then segues into the third part, which is War for Cybertron, that whole continuity. Talks about Orion Pax, the original Optimus Prime, and that whole War for Cybertron storyline, how Bumblebee lost his voice chip, and all of that stuff. And then the final chapter is pretty much the early tellings of Transformers Prime and that crew from the cartoon, but like the very early stories leading into almost to the beginning of the show. And that's the final chapter. So, to me personally, the most important chapters of it are obviously the first 50% of the book. As the War for Cybertron stuff, we already kind of knew. If we played the games, or if we read the comic book fiction, a lot of that we already kind of had an idea of, or was suggested through through the 2 books that were written before. So that wasn't that necessary. But it was, the whole selling point of this book was the first 2 big parts of it, which was the origin story. And it was done very well. It's very well written. It fleshes out everything. If I had one complaint about the way that it's written, is that as they're introducing the characters and each give them their own little section, only some of them have their art next to them, where as you proceed later in the book, you'll be turning pages and then, oh, that's what, you know, Vector Prime looks like, and then you'll turn some more page, oh, that's what Alchemist looks like, you know. Where it would have been kind of cool if during the section where they were talking about Alchemist, his picture would have been there too. You know, it's good because it gives you that visual of what the character looks like as you continue reading the story. Be like, okay, that's what the dude looks like. So when I'm reading, I can imagine it in his head. Especially when they go through great detail to describe each one of them. It's nice to have a picture that would have went with it. Amalgamus is a good example of that, because Amalgamus, when they're describing him, you know, you can't even imagine what they're trying to say there. And then when you finally see what he looks like, he's literally a mess of cogs and gears and electricity kicking all over. Yeah. It would have been nice to have the picture when they first introduced him, and then because he shows up, the picture shows up much later, so it would have been nice to have a good idea. And then the second chapter, talking about the rise of the Predacons, with Predacon, and just the early beasts and stuff, that is a really good chapter because it really fleshes out those characters that were kind of lacking in the Beast Hunters cartoon series and everything. I mean, Predacon got a little bit of fleshing out in the cartoon series, but this really like just gives a good origin of their whole story. But that's more or less it. I heavily suggest you get this. If you can get it off Amazon, which is the cheapest route, do that. Because otherwise, what does this go in for normal retail? I don't know. I remember seeing, I think it was normal retail 112, 120, where on Amazon it's 59. And I believe even cheaper on Amazon.com. I got it from CA being Canadian. So, but if you're a Transformer fan and you enjoy the fiction, this is a must. You know, I mean, I hate to sound religious, but it's like if you were a Christian and you didn't have the Bible, what the hell, man? And it's kind of the same thing. If you're a humongous Transformer fan and you don't have the Covenant of Primus, bro, what are you doing? You know? So, but definitely pick this up and give it a read. This is a great book. It was very well written. It's a quick read. I was able to read it in one like evening into late in the night, just so I could do this review for you guys. But it was a very quick read. Where I've read books that were easily like 600 pages, and those things took me a month. You know, I would schedule it into my day. Where this was a pretty quick read, also because it's a bigger font and there's a lot of images. So that that easy, what is it, 175 pages, you could almost like cut that, you know, 1/3 because of the amount of pictures that are used, which again, I appreciate those pictures because it really gives a visual to everything and just looks great. You know, it's really, really nice stuff, drawn by Casey Collar, who I've always talked very highly of, and Olivio worked on it too. Just some great pictures by those two, and just great book, just great book. I just want to say one thing at the end is just the opening foreword, which was actually written by Alpha Trion, explaining how this book was originally written in Cybertronian, and he translated this book for us in English for us to understand everything. And even when they get to the part about Solus, he explains how he's going to change pronouns to match human writing so that she is referred to as she for us because of our beliefs of female-male ratio and everything, where normally he would not have done that. So pick up this book. It is unrivaled. It is amazing. Probably one of the most important Transformer books you could ever pick up fictionally. And that's all I could say, really. Worth every penny. Worth every dime. Worth every Energon cube. The Covenant of Primus. This is Protoman and Protoretro. Take care, guys.